This is music, and this is another bunch of songs from the Pukebox. Welcome to another episode of Songs from the Pukebox. It's just a What's Spinning series with a terrible title. I know. What I do in these videos is just show and talk about some of the stuff I've been listening to throughout the last week or so. This time we have a handful of CDs from my collection. 5 were randomly picked and 1 was not that randomly picked. Now this video is going to be full of unpopular opinions, trigger warning, I guess. Anyways, let's get down to business. Up first, this one here, not that much to see, but this is Band-Maid, made in Japan. This is from the reissue. It came in a very plain digi gatefold thing, which I still have. I just keep it in storage somewhere else, so I actually have room for all my CDs in my apartment. The original looks like this. Now, so this is a released by Band-Maid. It's the first mini album. It's not held in high esteem by a lot of fans. I've even come across some Band-Maid fans who say they hate this one. Now, this is from before they were allowed to write their own material. So, the management had brought in some songwriters who obviously did not understand the band. So, you have a bunch of songs on here that don't really sound like Band-Maid songs. Apart from the vocals are recognizable. And I think that's why a lot of fans don't like this album. And the band themselves also seem to distance themselves from it. But you know what? Unpopular opinion number one. I like this. I think it's not as good as the following mini albums, and I think it's not as good at all as the albums that came out after Konami took over the songwriting. But I like the songs on here. I think they're well put together, catchy, kind of melodic hard rock slash pop rock songs. I genuinely love Be Okay, the opening track. It's a fun, upbeat hard rock song, very catchy, very memorable, easy to sing along to. Just a good, fun song. I love that song, and I actually like Big Bad as well. It's kind of strangely kawaii, but I think it's a fun song, and I enjoy it, and that goes for all the songs on here. This one also has Summer Drive, which is a very unusual Band-Maid song. Doesn't really sound like them. It's more of a funky pop rock song, but I think it's a good song. Just, looking at it, I almost said objectively, but you can't really look at music objectively. But, you know, decontextualized just as a song, I think it's a good song. So yeah, unpopular opinion number one. I like Made in Japan. Up next, Black Sabbath featuring Tony Iommi, Seventh Star. This is another album that the fan base doesn't like. A lot of Black Sabbath fans dislike this one here because it doesn't sound like Black Sabbath really. It sounds much more commercial, which makes sense because it was not intended to be a Black Sabbath album originally. It was intended to be a Tony Iommi solo album, but I guess the label forced him to release it as a Black Sabbath album. And I tend to think and talk about this in terms of it being an AOR album. I have called it an AOR album in the past on this channel, and I will probably do it in the future. But truth be told, whenever I listen to it, I go, it's not really an AOR album, is it? Sure, it has lots of AOR elements. It's very commercial sounding, but it's a metal album. Starting out with In for the Kill, an up tempo banger of a metal song. And then, of course, you have No Stranger to Love, which is a dark and heavy ballad, which I love. It's a great song. And that goes for all the songs on here. I think they're great. They're metal songs. Some are slow, some are more ballady, some are upbeat, some are heavy, some are groovy. And it's true, a lot of the riffs don't sound like Black Sabbath riffs, but some of them do sound like your typical Tony Iommi riffs. So there's a little bit of Sabbath on here, but I get more of a almost a Deep Purple vibe from some of the songs, Rainbow vibe perhaps. Don't know why. So it's a very commercial metal album, but I love this album, and there you have it. Unpopular opinion number two. I even like this album better than some of the Sabbath albums with Ozzy on vocals. Ay ay ay, huh? Okay, up next, A Healthy Dose of Death by Collision. This is crossover thrash meets grindcore. On the crossover thrash side of things, they actually sometimes lean quite heavily into the hardcore side of things, and sometimes quite heavily into the thrash side of things. So there's kind of an overlap, I guess, in style between this and Municipal Waste. But this one has a grindcore component, and that's what sets Collision apart from a lot of other pizza and beer thrash bands. You got blast beats all over the place, lots of grindcore stuff, and it's great. I love it musically. It's aggressive but fun in a way, if you know what I mean. And the fun part also comes in with the lyrics. You have a song called Going Nuts with Splattered Guts. You got a song called Rock Around the Chopping Block. There's a song called Calming Chicks with a Crucifix. You got a song called Zombified and a song called The Violence of the Lambs and so on and so forth. So lots of puns, lots of kind of gore, splatter, horror themed lyrics, but kind of in a humorous way. So yeah, this is good fun. If you like your grindcore, give it a chance. It's great stuff. Up next, we have this one here. Iron Maiden's The Final Frontier. The reason why you don't have the band logo and the title on here is that this is the one that came in that weird pin case, which I still have in storage as well. But that's why you don't have all those details on here. Now, unpopular opinion number three. This is, of course, from after Iron Maiden started, making really long songs and kind of like heavy metal meets progressive rock, and a lot of people don't like that era of Iron Maiden. Unpopular opinion number three. I love that era of Iron Maiden. I love those long songs. I think they have a lot of interesting details. They have a lot to offer. Typically, lots of great vocal melodies as well. So, yeah, unpopular opinion number three. I love the Iron Maiden long song era. Of course, I love the golden era of the 80s too. That's what got me into this band in the first place. Now, for the longest time, this album here only really started to me when I would listen to it. It only really started with the fifth track, The Alchemist. And then from The Alchemist and onwards, I think all the songs were, or I used to think all the songs were fantastic. I still think that. Like The Alchemist itself, I think is a fantastic song. It has it's more of an up-tempo song. It has all this stuff I love about Iron Maiden, the twin guitar harmonies, the dynamic bass playing, the drums, the catchy vocal melodies and all that stuff. Uh, Isle of Avalon is a fantastic prog rock meets heavy metal song. I love Starblind and the Talisman, fantastic chorus there. And The Man Who Would Be King. When the Wild Wind Blows, I was a bit lukewarm on that one the first couple of years after this one came out, but now I love that as much as the other songs from The Alchemist and onwards. Now, the first four songs were kind of weak to me for the longest time. Satellite 15 is a weird opening track. It's kind of I actually admire Iron Maiden for opening a track with such an unusual song, but it's not a go-to song for me. I have warmed on El Dorado though. I actually love that song now. And Coming Home as well. I think that's a fantastic song. I love that song too. So I have warmed on those four opening tracks for sure. So yeah, unpopular opinion number three. I love the long Iron Maiden songs and I love this album. and I have even started liking the first four tracks more. So there you go. Now, this is the one that was not randomly picked from my collection. I ended up in a conversation about the Bolero, and that made me want to listen to this one because in the opening track, The Sign of the Cross, there are some Bolero-esque parts in it. So there you go. Yeah, unpopular opinion number four. I love Blaze Bailey's performance on this album. It's actually my favorite part of this album. That's Blaze Bailey's vocals. Oh dear, how dare I? This one has some great songs on it. Sign of the Cross, I think it's a masterpiece. I love Man on the Edge. That's an up-tempo song. Um, Fortunes of War, I think is a great song. It starts out a bit, you know, iffy, but I always end up like having a blast when I listen to it. So I think that's a great song too. Judgment of Heaven, I think is a fantastic song. I love the vocals in that song. So you have lots of really good songs on here. You have some songs that I think are bad too, if I'm being completely honest. Um, Look for the Truth, I think is a ridiculous song. I think it's so bad that I enjoy it ironically, and so there you go. I know it has its fans. The opening I think is great, but then when it kind of kicks in, it becomes kind of silly, if I'm being honest. So I think this is a really, really good album. Unpopular opinion, like I said. I think the vocals are fantastic. I never liked the guitar tone though. I think the guitar tone is a bit too weak. I think the guitars are not prominent enough in the mix. Sure, that means that you get a lot of cool bass stuff, but I wish the guitars had more power to them. I've started really liking the sound of the drums. They sound big, but also organic. So there you go. The X Factor. I really like this album. It's not my favorite Iron Maiden album, but I think Blaze Bailey, that's my favorite part of that album. So there you go. And up last, we have this one here, Catharsis by Mari. She is a drummer. She used to be in Mary's Blood, and this is her solo album after Mary's Blood was put on ice permanently, probably. And I think this is a very, very good album. It has some great instrumentals, and the drumming, of course, is fantastic. And she's kind of brought in some fantastic musicians as well. So you have some great guitar solos, and most of the songs I think are well written. There are some songs that are kind of cheesy, and it's not a problem to me. Some of them are a little bit too cheesy for me, and most of the cheesy songs have just a good dose of Gouda cheese, and I actually kind of like that. So I think this is a great album, very enjoyable. Not all the songs appeal to me equally, but there are some fantastic songs on here. You do have some songs with vocals, and I still have to get used to the vocals. I don't know why they haven't clicked with me yet. It's not like they're bad or anything. I don't know what it is. I do like the singing. It just has to really click with me. You know what I mean? I have to kind of get used to it. I think that's just it. I just have to get used to it. Um, so the core style, I think, is probably, I would say it's power metal. And you do have some elements from other genres. You have like a kind of a pop rock ballad on here. You have almost like a new metal song. But it's great. I enjoy listening to this. I'm glad I picked it up and I enjoyed whenever I listened to it. So I think this is a great first solo effort by Madi. I look forward to hearing more of her solo stuff. I hope she'll put out more stuff. So there you go. A handful of CDs, no less than four unpopular opinions, maybe more unpopular opinions that I just didn't know were unpopular. There you go. Thanks for watching.